The stars look different out here. Kang Taeho stood by the observation window of the horizon and watched the endless darkness. They were far from Earth now, farther than any human had ever traveled before. The ship had been flying for 3 years, and Taeho had grown used to the silence of deep space. He was a xenobiologist. His job was to study alien life if they ever found any. So far, they had found nothing but empty planets and dead rocks. But today felt different. Today, the captain had called everyone to the bridge. "We are picking up a signal," Captain Lee Minho said. His voice was calm, but Taeho could see excitement in his eyes. "It is not natural. Someone is out there." The crew of 12 gathered around the main screen. Dr. Park Soo-jin, the medical officer, stood next to Taeho. She was his closest friend on the ship. They had trained together back on Earth. "Is it a ship?" she asked. "We think so," the captain replied. "It is big, very big." The screen flickered, and then they saw it. A massive vessel appeared from behind a nearby moon. It was black and gold, shaped like a sharp blade cutting through space. It was at least 20 times larger than the horizon. "They are scanning us," one of the crew members said. Taeho felt his heart beat faster. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. He hoped they were friendly. The alien ship moved closer. Then, a voice came through the communication system. It was deep and commanding, translated by the ship's computer into broken but understandable words. "Human vessel. You will stop. You will prepare for boarding. Do not resist." Captain Minho looked at his crew. They had no weapons that could fight something that size. Running was not an option either. The alien ship was too fast. "We come in peace," the captain said into the communicator. "We are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm." There was silence for a moment. Then the voice returned. "You will be boarded. Stand down." Minutes later, the airlock opened. Taeho watched as tall figures walked into their ship. They were humanoid, but different. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were silver. They stood over 2 meters tall, with strong bodies covered in elegant armor. They moved like soldiers, checking every corner with careful eyes. Then she entered. The woman who walked in last was clearly their leader. She wore a crown of silver metal, and her armor was decorated with gold. Her face was beautiful but cold, like a statue carved from ice. She looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects. "I am Empress Nira of the Valari Empire," she said. Her voice filled the room without effort. "Which one of you leads this vessel?" Captain Minho stepped forward. "I am Captain Lee Minho. Welcome aboard the Horizon. We are peaceful explorers and—" "Silence," the Empress said. She was not interested in speeches. Her silver eyes moved across the crew, studying each face. Then she raised her hand, and one of her soldiers brought forward a small device. It beeped as he pointed it at each human. When the device pointed at Taeho, it made a different sound. A loud, sharp tone. The soldier looked surprised. He checked the device and scanned Taeho again. The same sound. Empress Nira walked toward Taeho. She was much taller than him. She looked down at his face with sudden interest. "What is your name?" she asked. "Kang Taeho," he replied. He tried to keep his voice steady. The Empress studied the device's screen. Her cold expression changed slightly. "Was that hope?" "Remarkable," she whispered. Then she turned to her soldiers. "This one. He comes with us." "Wait," Captain Minho said, stepping forward. "You cannot just take one of my crew. What is the meaning of this?" 2 Valari soldiers blocked him immediately. Their hands rested on their weapons. Empress Nira did not seem angry. She seemed almost amused. "Your crewman has something my empire needs. His genetic structure is compatible. More than compatible. It is perfect. Quote, 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 quote. Perfect for what?" Taeho asked. The Empress smiled. It was not a warm smile. "You will marry my daughter, Earthling. You will give me strong grandchildren. Your bloodline will save the Valari people. The room went silent. Teho thought he had heard wrong. Marriage? Grandchildren? He was a scientist, not a breeding program. This is insane, Dr. Sujin said. You cannot force someone to marry against their will. That is, I am empress of the largest empire in this galaxy, Nira interrupted. I can do whatever I wish. And I wish for this human to come with me. Captain Minho's hands formed fists at his sides. And if we refuse? Empress Nira looked at him with cold eyes. Then I will destroy your ship and take him anyway. The only difference is whether your crew lives or dies. The threat hung in the air like poison. Teho looked at his crewmates. These were his friends. His family. He could not let them die for him. I will go, he said quietly. Teho, no! Sujin grabbed his arm. It is okay. He gently removed her hand. If I go willingly, they live. That is the deal. Right? He looked at the Empress. Nira nodded slowly. You are smarter than you look, Earthling. Yes. Come peacefully, and your friends go free. Captain Minho shook his head. We will find you. We will come back with help. Teho forced a small smile. I know, Captain. But until then, I will be fine. I am harder to kill than I look. The Valari soldiers escorted him toward the airlock. Teho took one last look at the horizon. At his friends. At everything familiar. Then he stepped into the alien ship, and the door closed behind him. The Empress walked beside him through long hallways of black metal and glowing lights. You are brave for a human, she said. Or perhaps foolish. We shall see which. Why me? Teho asked. There are billions of humans on Earth. Why am I so special? Your body is strong in ways you do not understand, Nira replied. My scientists will explain. For now, know this. My daughter is the future of my empire. She deserves a worthy partner. Your genetics suggest you might be that partner, and if your daughter does not want to marry me, the Empress laughed softly. My daughter will do her duty, as will you. Teho said nothing. He watched through a window as the horizon grew smaller and smaller. Then the Valari ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, and Earth's vessel disappeared completely. He was alone now. Alone in an alien empire, promised to a princess he had never met, surrounded by people who saw him as nothing more than useful genetics. But Kang Teho was human, and humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended them. One alien empire was not going to break him. He would find a way. He always did. The planet Valara Prime was beautiful and terrifying. Teho looked through the shuttle window as they descended through purple clouds. Below, he saw cities made of crystal and metal. Towers that reached toward the sky like giant swords. Everything was sharp and elegant, built to show power and wealth. The Empress sat across from him. She had not spoken much during the journey. 2 days of travel through strange space, and Teho had learned very little about his situation. He only knew that the Valari were an old empire, that they had conquered many worlds, and that something was wrong with their people. We arrive at the Imperial Palace, a soldier announced. The shuttle landed on a platform high above the city. Teho stepped out and felt the alien air fill his lungs. It was thinner than Earth's air, and it smelled like metal and flowers mixed together. He could breathe, but it felt strange. Guards in golden armor lined the pathway. Servants in simple robes bowed as the Empress walked past. Teho followed her through massive doors into a throne room that could fit a football stadium inside. And there, standing near the throne, was the princess. She was tall like her mother, with the same pale blue skin and silver eyes. Her white hair was cut short, and she wore armor instead of a dress. She looked like a warrior, not a princess from fairy tales. Her face showed no welcome, only anger. Mother, she said coldly, what is this creature? This is Kang Teho. Empress Nira replied calmly. He is human. He is your future husband." Unquote. The princess stared at Taeho like he was dirt on her shoe. "This small, soft thing? You expect me to marry this? His genetics are perfect, Yuna." The scientists confirmed it. "He can give us strong children, children who will not be sick, children who will live." Princess Yuna walked toward Taeho. She circled him slowly, looking at him from every angle. Taeho stood still. He would not show fear. "He is tiny," Yuna said. "He looks weak. One hit and he would break." "I am standing right here," Taeho said. "You can talk to me directly." Yuna stopped. Her silver eyes met his brown ones. For a moment, surprise flickered across her face. Humans were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to bow and beg. This one did neither. "You dare speak to me that way? You dare speak about me like I am furniture?" The room went silent. Guards reached for their weapons. Empress Nira watched with curious eyes. Princess Yuna's face twisted with anger. "I challenge him," Yuna declared loudly. "The trial of worth. Right now. In the arena." Empress Nira frowned. "Yuna, that is not—" "It is my right," the princess interrupted. "If he cannot survive the trial, he is not worthy to marry anyone. The law supports me." The empress paused. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well. The trial will happen today." Taeho did not like the sound of that. "What is the trial of worth?" Yuna smiled for the first time. It was not a nice smile. "Combat. You and me. In the arena. I will show everyone how weak humans truly are." 2 hours later, Taeho stood in the center of a massive arena. Thousands of Valari filled the seats around him, all watching with curious eyes. He had been given simple armor and a staff weapon. It felt heavy in his hands. Princess Yuna stood across from him. She held a curved blade that glowed with blue energy. She looked like she had been fighting her whole life, because she probably had. A loud horn sounded. The fight began. Yuna attacked immediately. She was fast. Faster than any human Taeho had ever seen. Her blade cut through the air toward his neck. He barely managed to block it with his staff. The impact shook his entire body. She attacked again. And again. Each strike pushed him backward. The crowd cheered for their princess. They laughed at the struggling human. "Give up," Yuna said between attacks. "Surrender and maybe I will let you live." Taeho blocked another strike. His arms were burning. His lungs ached in the thin air. But he remembered something his grandfather had told him long ago. A fight is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about lasting longer than the other person. He stopped trying to fight back. Instead, he focused only on defense. Block, dodge, step back, let her waste her energy. Yuna hit him hard in the chest. He flew backward and crashed into the ground. Pain exploded through his ribs. The crowd roared with approval. He stood up. Yuna hit him again. He fell. He stood up again. This happened 5 times. 6 times. 7 times. Each time, the crowd grew quieter. Each time, Yuna's expression changed slightly. Frustration replaced confidence. "Why do you keep standing?" she demanded. "You cannot win. You must know that." Taeho spit blood on the ground. "Winning is not the point. I just refuse to stay down." He lifted his staff again. Yuna attacked with everything she had. Her blade moved like lightning. Taeho could not block them all. Cuts appeared on his arms, his legs, his face. Blood ran down his skin. But he kept moving. He kept standing. Finally, Yuna knocked the staff from his hands and pressed her blade to his throat. The fight was over. She had won, but nobody was cheering anymore. Taeho looked up at her with steady eyes. He was covered in blood. His body was screaming with pain. But he did not look defeated. "Kill me if you want," he said quietly. "But I will not kneel." Yuna stared at him. Her blade trembled slightly. Something in her eyes changed. Was it respect? Confusion? Taeho could not tell. The Empress's voice filled the arena. "Enough. The trial is complete. The princess has won. Yuna lowered her blade. She looked at Taeho for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without a word. Guards helped Taeho out of the arena. Dr. Sujin would have been angry if she saw his wounds. Broken ribs, deep cuts, bruises everywhere. But he was alive. And he had proven something important. Humans could be hurt. Humans could bleed. But they did not break easily. That night, Taeho lay in a bed in his assigned room. A Valari doctor had treated his wounds. The medicine worked faster than anything on Earth. His cuts were already closing. There was a knock on the door. It opened, and Princess Yuna stepped inside. Taeho tried to sit up, but pain stopped him. Come to finish the job? Yuna did not smile. She walked to his bedside and stood there silently. Then she spoke. 7 times. What? You stood up 7 times. After hits that would have killed most Valari warriors. How? How? Taeho thought about it. On Earth, we have a saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. I was only following instructions. Yuna shook her head slowly. You are strange, Earthling. Very strange. She turned to leave, but at the door, she stopped. I still do not want to marry you, she said. But perhaps you are not as weak as I thought. The door closed behind her. Taeho stared at the ceiling and smiled despite the pain. It was not much, but it was a start. Somewhere in this alien empire, there was a way forward. He just had to keep standing until he found it. 3 weeks passed since the trial. Taeho's wounds healed faster than anyone expected. The Valari doctors ran test after test, trying to understand how his body worked. They poked him, scanned him, and took samples of everything. He felt like a lab animal, but he stayed patient. Information was power, and he was learning just as much about them as they were learning about him. The Imperial Palace became his prison. He was not allowed to leave, but he could move freely inside its walls. He spent his days exploring, learning the Valari language, and watching how things worked. The palace was full of servants and soldiers, but nobody spoke to him. They looked at him with curious eyes and whispered behind his back. The Empress summoned him one morning. He was taken to a large room filled with screens and equipment. Scientists in white robes worked at various stations. In the center of the room, a large display showed what looked like genetic data. Sit, Empress Nira commanded. She stood beside an older Valari with tired eyes. This is Chief Scientist Dovan. He will explain what we have discovered about you. Taeho sat down. I am listening. Dovan activated the display. Images of DNA appeared, spinning slowly. Human biology is remarkable and disturbing. We did not expect this. Expect what? Taeho asked. Your planet, Dovan said, shaking his head. What kind of world creates a species like you? The gravity is heavy. The atmosphere is unstable. Your sun produces harmful radiation. Your planet has extreme temperatures, violent weather, earthquakes, volcanoes, and thousands of diseases. Millions of species on your world are poisonous, venomous, or predatory. Yes, Taeho said slowly. We call it home. Dovan stared at him. You call it home. We would call it a death world. A planet that actively tries to kill everything on it. And you not only survived there, you became the dominant species. Empress Nira stepped forward. Tell him about the test results. The scientist nodded and changed the display. We put you through standard physical tests. Your strength is average for a Valari, which surprised us given your size. But your endurance is impossible. Impossible how? You ran for 6 hours without stopping. Most Valari soldiers cannot run for more than 2. Your heart rate stayed stable. Your body temperature adjusted automatically. When we tested pain tolerance, you scored higher than our elite warriors. Taeho shrugged. Humans are built to chase prey across long distances. Our ancestors would hunt animals by following them for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. We do not give up easily. The scientists exchanged nervous looks. There is more, Dovin continued. Your immune system is terrifying. We exposed your blood samples to 17 different alien pathogens. Diseases that have killed millions across the galaxy. Your cells adapted and destroyed all of them within 48 hours. Tejo felt a small sense of pride. We have diseases on Earth too. Many of them. Our bodies learned to fight. Your bodies learned too well, Dovin said quietly. You carry bacteria in your mouth that could kill a Valari if it entered their bloodstream. Your digestive system contains acid strong enough to dissolve metal. And this. He pointed at something on the screen. Adrenaline. This chemical your body produces under stress. It makes you faster, stronger, and almost immune to pain temporarily. Empress Nira looked at Tejo with new eyes. You are not fragile, Earthling. You are terrifyingly durable. Your species was forged by suffering. Tejo thought about human history. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, ice ages. Humans had faced extinction many times, and every time, they survived. They adapted. They kept going. We had no choice, he said simply. Die or survive. We chose survival. General Borak entered the room. He was a large Valari with scars across his face. He had been watching the tests from the beginning, and Tejo could see suspicion in his eyes. This is dangerous, Borak said to the Empress. If humans are this resilient, imagine what would happen if they became our enemies. They breed quickly. They adapt to any environment. They never stop fighting. We should not be bringing their genetics into our bloodline. We should be preparing to destroy them before they become a threat. They are explorers, Tejo said coldly. We came in peace, Borak laughed. Every conqueror says they come in peace, until they are strong enough to take what they want. He looked at the Empress. This human is dangerous. All humans are dangerous. You are making a mistake. Empress Nira held up her hand. Enough. I have made my decision. Our bloodline is dying, General. Our children are born sick. Each generation is weaker than the last. This human's genetics can change that. I will not let fear destroy our future. Borak's jaw tightened. As you wish, Your Majesty. He turned and left without another word. Tejo watched him go and felt cold certainty in his gut. That man would cause trouble later. After the meeting, Tejo walked through the palace gardens. They were beautiful in an alien way, with plants that glowed softly in the evening light. He found a quiet bench and sat down to think. The Valari were powerful. They had conquered many worlds. But they were also dying. Their genetic pool had become too small, too weak. They had won so many wars that they forgot how to change, how to adapt. They were victims of their own success. Humans were the opposite. They had always been struggling, always changing, always finding new ways to survive. Their greatest strength was not muscles or weapons. It was their refusal to accept defeat. You look thoughtful. Tejo looked up. Princess Yuna stood a few meters away, watching him with uncertain eyes. She wore simple clothes tonight, not armor. She looked younger without her warrior costume. Your mother's scientists think I am a monster, Tejo said. Are you? I do not think so. But maybe monsters never see themselves clearly. Yuna sat on the opposite end of the bench. She was quiet for a long moment. I read about your planet today, she finally said. About your history. So many wars. So many disasters. Your people have suffered greatly. Yes. And yet you built civilizations, created art, explored the stars. How? Tejo looked up at the alien sky. Because suffering is not the end for us. It is just another problem to solve. We fall down, we stand up, we try again. That is what being human means. Yuna studied his face. The other species we conquered broke easily. They surrendered. They accepted defeat. You do not seem capable of that. Surrender is not really in our nature, Tejo admitted. Even when we should probably give up, We keep fighting. It is sometimes our greatest flaw. Teho sighed. Or your greatest strength. Teho looked at her with surprise. That almost sounded like a compliment. Yuna stood up quickly, as if embarrassed. Do not think this changes anything. I still did not choose this marriage. I still do not want to be a tool for my mother's plans. That makes two of us, Teho replied. She paused at that. For a brief moment, something like understanding passed between them. Then the walls went back up. Good night, Earthling, Yuna said, and walked away into the glowing gardens. Teho watched her go. He was starting to understand her better. She was not just a cold warrior princess. She was a prisoner too. Trapped by duty and expectation, maybe they had more in common than either of them realized. Far away, in his chambers, General Borak was meeting with other officers. They spoke in whispers about the danger of humans, the weakness of the Empress, and the need for change. Plans were being made, dark plans, and Teho had no idea what was coming. 2 months passed on Valara Prime. Teho fell into a routine. Mornings were for tests and examinations by the scientists. Afternoons were for language lessons and studying Valari culture. And evenings, surprisingly, often included visits from Princess Yuna. She never admitted why she came. Sometimes she said she wanted to practice combat techniques. Sometimes she claimed she was checking on his health for the good of the Empire. But slowly, the excuses became less important, and the conversations became longer. Tonight, they sat on the balcony of his chambers, looking at the 3 moons that orbited Valara Prime. Yuna held a cup of warm liquid that smelled like sweet medicine. Teho had learned it was a traditional Valari drink for relaxation. Tell me about Earth again, Yuna said. She asked this often. What do you want to know? Your oceans. You said they cover most of your planet. What are they like? Teho smiled, remembering. Blue and endless, sometimes calm like glass, sometimes violent with waves taller than buildings. Full of life we still do not fully understand. I grew up near the sea. The sound of waves was the first thing I heard every morning. Yuna listened with strange intensity. We have no oceans here. Water is precious and controlled. I cannot imagine so much of it that you could not drink it all in 1,000 lifetimes. It is salty, Teho said. The ocean water, I mean. You cannot drink it. But swimming in it feels like freedom. Freedom, Yuna repeated quietly. The word seemed heavy in her mouth. Teho looked at her carefully. Can I ask you something personal? Teho. She hesitated, then nodded. What did you want to be? Before all this, before duty and empire, and arranged marriages, Yuna was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer than usual. I wanted to explore, to see the stars up close, to discover new worlds that nobody had visited before. I trained as a pilot before I trained as a warrior. I was good at it. What happened? My brother died. She said it simply, but pain flickered across her face. He was supposed to be the heir. He was strong, smart, everything an emperor should be. But he got sick. The same sickness that takes many Valari children now. He was 14 when he died. I am sorry. Yuna shook her head. After that, I was the only heir. My mother needed me to stay, to learn politics and warfare, to prepare for the throne. My dreams did not matter anymore. Only duty mattered. Teho understood. He had given up his freedom to save his crew. Yuna had given up her dreams to save her family's legacy. They were both prisoners in different cages. Maybe one day things will change, he said gently. Maybe. She did not sound like she believed it. A servant appeared at the door, interrupting their moment. Princess, Your Highness, there is an urgent message from the outer colonies. A plague has broken out on Valari 7. Thousands are sick. The medical teams are overwhelmed. Yuna stood immediately. What kind of plague? Unknown origin. The symptoms are severe. People are dying within days. Teho stood too. I want to help. Yuna looked at him with surprise. Help? Why? Because I am a xenobiologist. Studying diseases is literally my job. And because I am not going to sit here doing nothing while people die. This is not your problem, Earthling. These are not your people. People are people, Tejo replied firmly. Suffering does not care about species. Let me help. Yuna studied his face. Something shifted in her expression. Very well. I will take you myself. But if you slow me down, I will leave you behind. They departed that night on a fast shuttle. The journey to Valari 7 took 8 hours. Tejo spent the time reading everything he could about Valari biology and medicine. It was different from human biology, but the basic principles were similar. Cells, organs, immune systems. Disease was disease, no matter the species. Valari 7 was a mining colony. The buildings were functional and ugly, covered in dust from the mineral extraction operations. When they landed, the scene was worse than Tejo expected. Medical tents filled the central square. Sick Valari lay on cots, coughing blood and crying in pain. Doctors moved between them with desperate speed. But there were too many patients and not enough staff. The colony leader met them at the landing pad. He looked exhausted. Princess, thank the stars you are here. We have lost 200 people in 3 days. Our medicines do not work. We do not know what this sickness is. Yuna turned to Tejo. Well? You said you could help. Tejo walked into the nearest medical tent. He examined patients, asked questions, and studied the symptoms. High fever, internal bleeding, rapid organ failure. The disease was aggressive and deadly. I need access to your laboratory, he said. Blood samples from patients at different stages, and information about any new substances the colonists might have been exposed to recently. The doctors were skeptical at first. A human giving them orders? But Yuna made it clear that he was there by her command. They obeyed. Tejo worked through the night. He analyzed blood samples, compared genetic markers, and tested theories. The Valari doctors watched with growing interest as he applied methods they had never seen before. By morning, he had an answer. It is not a natural disease, he announced to the gathered medical team. It is a reaction. The miners recently broke into a new underground section, correct? The rocks there contain a mineral compound that is toxic to Valari biology. Breathe it in, and it starts destroying cells from the inside. The colony leader's eyes widened. The new tunnels. We opened them 2 weeks ago. Seal them, Tejo ordered. Get all workers out of that area immediately. For treatment, we need to filter the compound from their blood and give their immune system support. I can design a treatment protocol, but your doctors will need to adapt it for Valari physiology. It took 3 days. Tejo barely slept. He worked alongside Valari doctors, teaching them techniques, adjusting treatments, and monitoring patients. Yuna stayed too. She helped move supplies, comforted frightened families, and made sure everyone had what they needed. Slowly, people started recovering. The death count stopped rising. By the 4th day, the plague was under control. Tejo finally collapsed in exhaustion in one of the medical tents. When he woke up, Yuna was sitting beside him, watching him with an expression he could not read. You saved them, she said quietly. These are strangers to you, aliens, and you almost killed yourself saving them. It was the right thing to do, Tejo replied, his voice tired. Most people would not have done that. Most people protect only their own kind. Tejo sat up slowly. His whole body ached. Maybe that is why your empire is dying. You conquered everyone, but never connected with anyone. You have soldiers and subjects, but no friends, no allies. Just fear. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and did something unexpected. She took his hand. Thank you, she said softly, for helping my people, for being here, for... She stopped, unable to find the words. Tejo looked at her hand holding his. It felt strange but not unpleasant. You are welcome. Something had changed between them, something important. They both felt it, even if neither could name it yet. The shuttle ride back to Valara Prime was quieter than the journey out. But it was a different kind of quiet. Not cold or awkward. Comfortable. When they landed at the palace, Empress Nera was waiting. Her face was unreadable as she looked at them walking together. "I heard what happened," she said to Tejo. "You saved a colony of strangers. My military advisors think you did it to gain favor. My scientists think you did it to study us. Tell me, Earthling, why did you really do it?" Tejo met her eyes without fear. "Because people were dying and I could help. That is the only reason I needed." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Perhaps," she said quietly. "I underestimated humans after all." She walked away without another word. But Tejo noticed that, for the first time, she had not called him Earthling like an insult. She had said it with something close to respect. 4 months had passed since Tejo arrived on Valara Prime. He was no longer just a prisoner. He had become something more complicated. The scientists respected his knowledge. Some of the palace staff had warmed to him. And Yuna, the cold warrior princess, now smiled when she saw him. But General Borak had been watching too. Waiting. Planning. It happened on a night when Tejo and Yuna were away from the capital. They had traveled to a distant province to visit an ancient Valari temple. Yuna wanted to show him part of her culture's history, and the Empress had approved the trip. For the first time, it felt almost like a normal outing between two people getting to know each other. They were in the temple gardens when Yuna's communicator buzzed with emergency signals. Her face went pale as she read the messages. "What is wrong?" Tejo asked. "General Borak, he has seized the palace. He has arrested my mother." Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "He is declaring himself protector of the Empire. He says the Empress has been corrupted by alien influence. He means you." Tejo felt ice in his stomach. "What do we do? We need to get back to the capital. I need to free my mother and stop this before it spreads." Yuna was already moving toward their shuttle, but when they reached the landing platform, soldiers were waiting. They wore the colors of Borak's faction. Their weapons were drawn. "Princess Yuna," the leader called out. "You are ordered to surrender. You and the human will be taken into custody for questioning." Yuna drew her blade. "I am the heir to this empire. I give orders. I do not take them from traitors." The soldiers attacked. Yuna fought like a storm. Her blade moved so fast that Tejo could barely follow it. She cut down 2 soldiers in seconds, then turned to block attacks from 3 more. But there were too many of them. Even she could not fight an army alone. Tejo grabbed a fallen soldier's weapon. It was heavy and unfamiliar, but his body remembered the lessons from the trial. Block, dodge, strike. He was not as skilled as Yuna, but he could survive. And right now, survival was everything. Together, they fought their way through the soldiers. Tejo took hits that would have broken a Valari. A blade cut deep into his arm. A staff slammed into his ribs. But he kept moving, kept fighting. Pain was just information. He could process it later. They escaped into the night, stealing a ground vehicle and driving into the wilderness beyond the temple. The pursuing soldiers fell behind, confused by the darkness and the rough terrain. Yuna stopped the vehicle near a cave when they were far enough away. She looked at Tejo with wide eyes. "You are bleeding." "I know." He pressed his hand against the wound on his arm. Blood seeped between his fingers. "That cut is deep. You should not be standing. Standing is what I do." He managed a weak smile. "Remember?" Yuna found medical supplies in the vehicle and treated his wounds. Her hands were gentle, different from her warrior image. Tejo watched her face as she worked. There was fear there, and anger, and something else. Worry. For him. "Thank you," she said quietly as she finished bandaging his arm. "For fighting." "You did not have to." "Yes, I did." Tejo looked into her eyes. "Your mother might be a kidnapper, and your empire might see me as breeding stock. But you are different." You are worth fighting for. Yuna looked away quickly, but not before Teho saw the emotion in her eyes. We cannot stay here. Borak's soldiers will search everywhere. We need to reach the capital before he consolidates his power. How far is it? 3 days on foot through dangerous territory. She looked at his wounds. Can you make it? Teho stood up, ignoring the pain that screamed through his body. Only one way to find out. The journey was brutal. They traveled through forests of strange trees, across rivers of chemical water that burned the skin, over mountains of black rock. Valara Prime was beautiful from the palace, but its wilderness was harsh and unforgiving. Teho's wound slowed him down. Yuna had to help him over difficult terrain. Sometimes she practically carried him. It should have been humiliating. But Teho was beyond pride now. Survival was the only thing that mattered. On the second night, they sheltered in an abandoned mining station. Teho was burning with fever. His wounds were getting infected despite the medicine. You need rest, Yuna said firmly. Real rest. Not just a few hours. We do not have time. If you die, it will not help anyone. She pushed him down onto a sleeping mat. I will keep watch. Sleep. Teho wanted to argue, but his body had no strength left. He closed his eyes and fell into darkness. When he woke, sunlight was streaming through broken windows. He felt better. Not good, but better. The fever had broken. He sat up slowly and found Yuna asleep beside him, her hand resting on her blade even in her dreams. He watched her sleeping face. Without the cold mask she always wore, she looked young and vulnerable. She had stayed awake all night to guard him. This fierce warrior princess, who once wanted him dead, was now protecting him with her own body. Something in Teho's heart shifted, something important. He gently touched her shoulder. Yuna. Her eyes snapped open immediately, alert and ready for danger. When she saw it was just him, she relaxed slightly. How do you feel? She asked. Better. Thank you for watching over me. She looked away. It was practical. I need you alive to help free my mother. Of course. Practical. He smiled slightly. They both knew it was more than that now. They continued their journey. The capital grew closer. Along the way, they found pockets of resistance. Loyal soldiers who had escaped Borak's purge. Palace servants who disagreed with the coup. Yuna rallied them, reminding them of their duty to the true empress. By the time they reached the outskirts of the capital, they had a small army. Not enough to fight Borak's forces directly, but enough to create chaos. The palace is heavily guarded, Yuna explained, drawing plans in the dirt. Borak has my mother in the throne room, using her as a symbol. He broadcasts speeches, calling her a traitor. But he will not kill her yet. He needs her legitimacy, so we need to get inside, free her, and broadcast the truth before he can react. Teho summarized. Yes, but the only way inside is through the old maintenance tunnels. They are dangerous and partly collapsed. Many people have died in there. Teho looked at the rough map. I can go through the tunnels. I am smaller than Valari soldiers. I can fit through gaps they cannot. It is too dangerous. You could be killed. Everything is dangerous. But if I get through, I can open the doors from inside and let your soldiers in. While they fight Borak's guards, you get to the broadcast center and tell everyone the truth. Yuna shook her head. I should go with you. You need to be the face of this. The people need to see their princess fighting for their empress. I am just a human. Nobody will follow me, but they will follow you. Teho stood up. This is the best plan. You know it is. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and did something unexpected. She pulled him into her arms. A hug. Valari did not hug. It was not their culture, but she held him tightly anyway. Do not die in those tunnels, Earthling, she whispered. Teho held her back. I will try my best. They separated. Teho headed toward the tunnel entrance. Yuna watched him go. her silver eyes following him until he disappeared into the darkness. Inside the tunnels, Taeho faced collapsed walls, toxic gas pockets, and creatures that lived in the darkness. He crawled through spaces, barely wider than his shoulders. He held his breath through poisonous sections. He climbed over rubble that scraped his healing wounds open again. Hours passed. Several times, he thought he would not make it. The pain was constant. The air was thin, but every time he wanted to give up, he thought of Yuna, waiting outside. He thought of the Empress in chains. He thought of proving that humans never stopped fighting. Finally, he saw light ahead. The exit. The inside of the palace. He was through. Taeho found the door controls and disabled them, opening the way for Yuna's soldiers. Alarms began to ring. The battle for the Empire had begun, and somewhere in the throne room, General Borak was about to learn what happened when you underestimated a human. The palace erupted into chaos. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Yuna's loyal soldiers poured through the doors Taeho had opened, clashing with Borak's guards in a dozen different locations. The sound of energy weapons and clashing blades echoed off the crystal walls. Taeho moved through the confusion like a ghost. He knew where he needed to go. The throne room. That was where Borak held the Empress. That was where this would end. He found a Valari guard unconscious on the ground and took his weapon. His body was exhausted from the tunnel journey. His wounds had reopened and were bleeding again. Every step hurt. But he kept moving. Pain was temporary. Failure would be permanent. The throne room doors were guarded by 4 of Borak's elite soldiers. They saw Taeho coming and laughed. "The little human," one of them said. "Trying to be a hero. Kill him, and be done with it." They attacked together. Taeho had no chance in a fair fight against 4 elite warriors. So he did not fight fair. He ducked under the first swing, rolled between the legs of another, and jammed his weapon into a control panel on the wall. Sparks flew. The lights in the corridor went dark. Valari had excellent night vision, but Taeho had spent the last several hours in complete darkness in the tunnels. His eyes adjusted faster than theirs. In the confusion, he struck. Quick, desperate attacks aimed at joints and weak points. Not killing blows, just enough to disable. He had watched enough Valari combat training to know where they were vulnerable. Within 30 seconds, all 4 guards were on the ground, groaning in pain. Taeho pushed open the throne room doors. The massive chamber was lit by emergency lighting. Empress Nira sat on her throne, her hands bound with energy chains. She looked tired and angry but unbroken. Around her stood a dozen soldiers loyal to Borak, and at the center of the room stood General Borak himself. He was massive, even for a Valari. Scars covered his arms and face, souvenirs from decades of warfare. He held a large blade that crackled with energy. His silver eyes found Taeho, and narrowed with contempt. "The human," Borak said with disgust. "You should not have come here, creature. This is not your fight. You made it my fight when you threatened the people I care about." Taeho stepped forward, raising his weapon. Borak laughed. "You? Fight me? I have killed thousands of warriors stronger than you. I have conquered worlds. You are nothing. An insect pretending to be a soldier." "Then squash me," Taeho replied, "if you can." He activated the broadcast system first, a small device Yuna had given him. Now, every screen in the Empire would show what happened next. Every Valari would watch their general face this human. Borak attacked with terrifying speed. His blade cut through the air like lightning. Taeho barely dodged the first strike. The second strike caught his shoulder, cutting through armor and flesh. Blood sprayed across the floor. Taeho stumbled, but did not fall. Borak pressed his advantage, raining down blows that Taeho could barely block. Each impact shook his entire body. His weapon cracked. His arms burned. This was not like the trial with Yuna. Borak was not testing him. Borak was trying to kill him. A powerful kick caught Taeho in the chest. He flew backward and crashed through a decorative pillar. Stone and crystal rained down on him. Pain exploded through his body. He was almost certain his ribs were broken again. He stood up. Borak's eyes widened slightly. "You should be dead." "I get that a lot." Teho attacked, but Borak swatted him aside like a child. He crashed into a wall, leaving a crater in the stone. Blood filled his mouth. His vision blurred. He stood up again. "What is wrong with you?" Borak shouted. He hit Teho with the flat of his blade, sending him spinning across the floor. "Stay down." Teho crawled to his hands and knees, then pushed himself up. No. Across the Empire, millions of Valari watched on their screens. They saw their mightiest general beating a small human with devastating force. They saw that human stand up every single time. Broken, bleeding, barely conscious. But standing. In the resistance camps, soldiers stopped fighting to watch. In homes and markets and ships, people stared at the broadcast in disbelief. This was impossible. No one could take that much punishment, and yet the human kept rising. Borak grabbed Teho by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Why won't you die?" he demanded. "What are you?" Teho's eyes met his. Through the pain, through the exhaustion, his voice came out steady. "I am human, and someone I care about is counting on me. So I will stand up as many times as it takes." Borak threw him against the throne steps. Teho hit the stone hard enough to crack it. For a moment, he did not move. Then, slowly, impossibly, he began to rise again. Empress Nera watched from her throne, unable to look away. She had seen warriors face death. She had seen courage and determination. But she had never seen anything like this. This human had nothing left. His body was destroyed. By every measure, he should be dead. And yet he was standing. For the first time in many years, the Empress of the Valari felt something like awe. Borak raised his blade for the killing blow. "Enough. Die knowing you failed." The blade fell, and Yuna's blade blocked it. The princess had arrived. Behind her came a wave of loyal soldiers, overwhelming Borak's remaining guards. The battle for the throne room lasted only moments. Yuna stood between Teho and Borak, her blade steady. Borak looked around at his defeated soldiers, at the broadcast still running, at the millions of witnesses who had watched him fail to kill one human. His face twisted with rage. "You have doomed us all," he spat. "These humans are too dangerous. They will destroy us. You will see." "Perhaps," Yuna said coldly. "But that is not for you to decide. Guards, take him." Borak was dragged away in chains. The coup was over. Yuna immediately turned to Teho, who had finally collapsed. She caught him before he hit the ground, holding him in her arms. His eyes were barely open. "You idiot," she said, her voice breaking. "You were supposed to stay safe. Not fight the most dangerous warrior in the Empire." "Had to buy you time," Teho whispered. "Did it work?" "Yes, everyone saw. The whole Empire watched you stand up to him." She was crying now. Something he had never seen her do. "You could have died, but I didn't." He managed a weak smile. "Told you. Humans are hard to kill." Medical teams rushed forward to take him. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, Yuna held his hand and refused to let go. Empress Nera approached, her chains removed. She looked down at the broken, bloody human who had just helped save her throne. Her expression was unreadable. "You could have run," she said quietly. "You could have used this chaos to escape. Find your way back to Earth. Why did you fight for us?" Teho's eyes found Yuna's face. "I think you know why." The Empress followed his gaze to her daughter. She saw the way Yuna looked at him, the way her hand gripped his like she would never let go. The way tears ran down the cheeks of a warrior who never cried. Nera had forced them together for politics and genetics. But somewhere along the way, something real had grown between them. Something she had not planned. Something she had not expected. "Get him the best medical care in the Empire," she ordered. "He lives. Whatever it takes." As they carried Teho away, the Empress looked at the broadcast screen, still showing images of the battle. She saw comments and messages flooding in from across her empire. People were talking about the human, about his courage, about his impossible endurance, about how he stood up again and again against impossible odds. For the first time in centuries, the Valari were not talking about weakness or decline. They were talking about hope, about what was possible when you simply refused to give up, and it was all because of one stubborn human who did not know how to stay down. Tejo woke slowly, drifting up from darkness like rising through deep water. Light filled his vision. Clean, soft light. Not the harsh emergency lighting of battle. He was alive. That was something. He tried to move and winced. His body was wrapped in bandages and connected to machines that hummed quietly. Everything hurt, but it was a healing kind of hurt. The sharp edges of danger had faded. A familiar face appeared above him. Yuna. She looked different. Softer somehow. The cold warrior mask she always wore was completely gone. Her eyes were red from crying, and her hair was messy. She looked exhausted. She looked beautiful. "You are awake," she said, and her voice cracked with relief. "How long?" Tejo's voice came out rough and weak. 2 weeks. "Your injuries were severe. The doctors did not think you would survive the first night. Your heart stopped 3 times. She took his hand gently. "I never left. I stayed here every day, waiting for you to wake up." Tejo squeezed her hand weakly. "Sorry for scaring you. You should be sorry. That was the stupidest, bravest, most foolish thing I have ever seen anyone do." Tears ran down her face again. "You fought General Borak. Alone, unarmed. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about you," Tejo admitted. "About keeping you safe. About giving you enough time." Yuna leaned down and pressed her forehead against his. It was an intimate gesture. Something Valari only did with those they deeply trusted. "You impossible human. What am I supposed to do with you? Keep me, maybe?" He managed a small smile. She laughed through her tears. It was the first time he had heard her really laugh. It sounded like music. Over the next several weeks, Tejo recovered slowly. His human biology amazed the Valari doctors once again. Wounds that should have taken months to heal closed in weeks. His broken bones mended stronger than before. His body adapted and repaired itself with incredible efficiency. The scientists took more tests. They discovered that the hybrid medical treatments they had used, combined with his natural human healing, had created something unprecedented. Tejo was becoming stronger than before, not Valari strong, but beyond normal human limits. "Your species continues to surprise us," the lead doctor told him. "You do not just survive damage, you improve from it. We call it post-traumatic growth," Tejo explained. "What does not kill us makes us stronger. It is not just a saying, it is biology." The doctor shook his head in amazement. Truly a death world species. During his recovery, Tejo received visitors, palace servants who brought him food and thanked him quietly. Scientists who wanted to discuss human biology, soldiers who had watched the broadcast and now looked at him with newfound respect. But the most important visitor came one evening when the moons were rising outside his window. Empress Nira entered alone, without guards or servants. She looked older than when they first met, tired from the aftermath of the coup. But her eyes were sharp as ever. "Walk with me," she said. "If you are able." Tejo stood carefully. His legs were weak but functional. Together, they walked to the balcony overlooking the Crystal City. "My empire has existed for 3,000 years," Nira said quietly. "We have conquered 47 species. We believed ourselves superior to all others. And yet, we were dying from within. Our blood was weak. Our children were sick. Our future was fading." She turned to look at Tejo directly. "I brought you here for selfish reasons. I saw you as a tool, a means to save my bloodline. I did not consider your wishes or your dignity. For that, I apologize." Tejo was surprised. Empresses did not apologize. "But something unexpected happened," Nira continued. You proved yourself to be more than genetics. You saved a colony of strangers. You risked your life to free me. You stood against the greatest warrior in my empire and refused to fall. You showed my people what real strength looks like. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. She pressed it, and Teho's wrist bracelet, the one that tracked and contained him, fell away. You are free, she said. The forced marriage decree is officially rescinded. You may return to Earth whenever you wish. A ship will be provided for your journey. Teho stared at his bare wrist. Free. After all these months, he was actually free. He could go home, see Earth again, find his friends on the horizon, return to his normal life. So why did his heart feel heavy instead of light? There is something else, Nira said. The crew of your ship, the Horizon. We have located them. They have been searching for you, making quite a lot of noise in the outer sectors. I have invited them here as guests of the Empire. They will arrive in 3 days. You brought them here? You saved my life and my throne. The least I can do is reunite you with your people. The Empress paused. Unless you have reasons to stay. She left him alone on the balcony with his thoughts. 3 days later, a human ship landed on the palace platform. Teho stood waiting, his heart pounding. The door opened, and familiar faces appeared. Captain Lee Minho was first. The older man's eyes widened when he saw Teho, then filled with relief. You crazy kid, you're actually alive. Dr. Park Sujin was right behind him. She ran forward and hugged Teho tightly, not caring about Valari protocol. We searched everywhere. We never gave up. We were going to find you no matter what. The crew surrounded him, laughing and crying and patting his back. His family, his people. They had never stopped looking for him. Captain Minho noticed the princess standing nearby, watching quietly. And who is this? Teho took a deep breath. Captain, this is Princess Yuna. There's a lot I need to tell you. That night, there was a feast in the palace. Humans and Valari ate together, shared stories, and learned about each other. Captain Minho listened carefully as Teho explained everything that had happened. The forced engagement, the trials, the plague, the coup. His feelings for Yuna. So, the captain said slowly when the story was done, you're telling me you fell in love with an alien princess who originally wanted to kill you? Yes, sir. And now you're free to come home. But you're not sure if you want to? Yes, sir. Captain Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed. You never did anything the easy way, did you? On the final night before the Horizon was scheduled to depart, Yuna found Teho in the garden where they had first really talked. She sat beside him on the familiar bench. You should go home, she said quietly. Your people are waiting. Your planet is waiting. I cannot ask you to give that up for me. You're not asking, Teho replied. I'm offering. He took her hands in his. Yuna, when I was captured and brought here, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never be happy again. But then, I met you. I learned that even enemies can become friends. That love can grow in the strangest places. That home is not always where you started. Sometimes, it's where you end up. Yuna's silver eyes glistened. What are you saying? Teho smiled. I'm saying that Earth is beautiful, and I love my planet. But Earth will always be there. This moment, right now, with you, might not come again. I choose to stay. You would give up everything for me? Not give up. Choose differently. And besides, he grinned slightly. Someone needs to keep teaching your scientists about human biology. They're still confused by about half of it. Yuna laughed through her tears. Then she kissed him. It was awkward and strange, two different species trying to figure out how to fit together. But it was also perfect. Empress Nira announced the wedding a week later. This time, it was not a forced arrangement or a political tool. It was a choice, made freely by two people who had somehow found each other across the stars. The ceremony was held in the grand throne room, now fully repaired from the battle. The crew of the Horizon stood on one side, wearing their dress uniforms. Valari nobles and soldiers stood on the other, watching with curious eyes. Captain Minho served as Teho's best man. Sujin cried happy tears through the entire ceremony. When Teho and Yuna exchanged vows, mixing human and Valari traditions, something historic happened. For the first time, two species joined not through conquest or necessity, but through love. Empress Nira watched from her throne with satisfaction. She had set out to save her bloodline. She had found something much more valuable. A bridge between worlds. A hope for the future. After the ceremony, as Teho and Yuna danced their first dance, the Empress approached Captain Minho. "Your crewman is remarkable," she said. "All humans are remarkable, Your Majesty. We just don't always get the chance to prove it." Nira nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is much our peoples could learn from each other. Perhaps it is time for the Valari to make friends instead of subjects. That would be a good start." The night ended with celebration. Two species, dancing and laughing together. Two worlds, taking the first steps towards something new. Teho looked at his bride, his crew, his new family. A year ago, he had been kidnapped and promised to a stranger. Now he stood at the center of something historic. Something beautiful. He thought about everything he had survived. The trials, the battles, the moments when death seemed certain. He had kept standing, kept fighting, kept refusing to give up. And somehow, impossibly, he had found happiness on the other side. Across the stars, other empires watched what happened on Valara Prime. They saw the alliance forming between the powerful Valari and the strange humans from the distant Death World. They heard stories about the human who refused to fall, who won a princess's heart through stubborn courage, and they began to whisper nervously about what might happen if more humans came to the stars. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were small. Humans were fragile. Humans lived on a planet that tried to kill them every day. But humans simply refused to break. And that made them the most dangerous species in the universe, and the most wonderful.